Hello everyone, welcome to the Python tutorial, and in today's lecture we are going to be talking about strings in Python. And before we go ahead to start the lecture, I just wanted to tell you guys that in case you want to get the course notebook, you go ahead to click on the link that is attached to the description box below, and it's going to take you here, right? So here you are going to have all the class notebook being updated here. And as you can see, the previous lecture we spoke about numbers and also variables assignments. And once you go ahead to click on this, you are going to see all the updated class notes here. So do well to check the GitHub link in the description box, so you're going to have the updated class notebook. With that being said, let's go ahead to look at what we are going to be treating today. All right. So today we are going to be talking about strings in Python, and basically all the things you need to know when it comes to working with strings in Python. So strings are sequence of characters using the syntax of either single quotes or double quotes in Python. So just like the normal way you write your sentence or your word in your normal language, you can also do that in Python. And basically, to use strings in Python, you have to use either a single quote or a double quote. All right. So looking at our example here, you can see that we have the word hello, and this hello is used in a single quote. So you can write this in Python. This would actually work fine. And you can also go ahead to also use double quotes. If you are using double quotes in Python, you have to use these two strings, all right? And it's just the icon that is beside the semicolon on your keyboard. All right. So you can also do the mix of both, whereby you are going to be combining double quote and also single quotes in one sentence. So if you are using double quotes, you must use that in the beginning and in the end, and you can use a single quote in the middle or in between your double quotes. All right. But one thing you need to take note of is if you are using double quotes, you can use single quotes inside. But if you are using single quotes, right, for your Python, for writing a string in Python, you can use a single quote in between of two single quotes. So that's one thing that you should take note of. And we are also going to talk more about that. All right. So now that we know how we can write strings in Python, let's go ahead to also talk about the sequence in Python, right? So because strings are ordered sequence, it means that we can use indexing and slicing to grab sections of the strings, right? So basically what this means is, since they are actually sequence, then if we want to grab any position in a particular string or text, we can actually go ahead to do that. All right, please let me know if my voice is audible, right? Now, Amid. All right. So next is indexing notation, right? So indexing notation actually use a square bracket. In our previous lecture, I explained the different types of bracket that we have, right? The square bracket, the parentheses, the angular bracket, and the curly braces also. All right. So when you want to grab a particular index in Python, you have to go ahead to use the square bracket, right? So the square bracket is used for grabbing a particular index in Python, right? So index notation uses square notation, using square bracket notation after the string or variable assigned to the string. So basically what this means is, when you are trying to grab a particular word in Python, you can use this square brackets at the front of the string or the variable that is assigned to that particular string to grab series of texts from that particular string that you have. All right. And basically indexing allows you to grab a single character from a string, right? So you can grab a single character, you can grab a multiple character from a particular string, and basically that's what indexing allows you to do. All right. Amit, thanks for confirming that. All right. So basically, like I said earlier, that these actions uses square brackets and a number index to indicate positions of what you wish to grab. All right. So what do I mean by this? So for example, if we have a character of hello, right, Hello, and we want to grab the word H, we are going to grab hold of this h by using an index number 0. All right. So if we want to grab um, the word e, we're going to use the index number 1. Right. Good morning, thanks for joining us. All right, so now if you also want to grab the word l, the first l, you're going to use the index 2. All right, so and so on and so forth. That's how you can actually go ahead to grab characters from your strings. So we have this hello and we want to grab o, for example, then obviously we're going to grab the index what 4. All right, so I hope you guys understand what I'm trying to explain. So now you can also do something that is called reverse index, right? So you can use the normal index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So note that, and to grab a character from using an index, it starts with the index 0, right? So in Python, when we are actually working with strings and we want to index or slice a particular character, we start by from 0 to whatsoever the length is, right? So we don't start from 1, we start from 0, right? That's one thing to take note of. And also there's something that's called reverse index, and basically what you can do is if you want to grab o, you can use -1. So -1 indicates the last index that is available, right? Then you can have -1, -2, -3, -4, and so on and so forth. All right, so next now is um slicing, right? So slicing allows you to grab a subsection of multiple characters, like a slice of the string, right? So you know how you can go ahead to actually slice your bread that you have, right? So let's say you want to basically share a particular bread, right? So you can actually slice a portion that you want to eat for a particular moment, right? So that's how it actually works also in Python. So for example, if you want to just grab some certain part of the text from our string, then we can go ahead to use something that is called the slicing method in Python. And how does slicing method in Python works? Let's go ahead to look at this together, right? So the slicing in Python, right, has to do with this syntax. Now, you have this square bracket. Take note of this, the square brackets. And don't worry, we are still going to look at detailed example of how to do all of this. Just try to understand how strings in Python works very well. Then we're going to get our hands dirty. All right. So we have this square bracket and a start number, right? So the start number is basically where we want to start grabbing our index, our string from. All right. So it can be anything. It can be 0, 1, 2, 3. It depends on where you want to start from. And you also have this stop and you have the step. All right. So the start is basically a numerical index for the slice starts, right? So where do you want to start slicing your string from? That's where you have this start number here, this start index, right? So next we also have the stop and step, right? So the stop is basically the index you will go up to, but you will not include that particular last number, right? So I'm going to show you an example, right? So basically, if I'm saying grab from index 0 to 4, then basically it's going to print out the string, the characters for 0, 1, 2, 3, but it's not going to print out the one for 4, right? But basically, that's how you can actually do start and stop, right? So the stop is going to take the index you will go up to, but it will not include that stop index. That's one thing to take note of, right? And the last one here is step, right? So step is the size of the jump you will take. So for example, you can say I want to take from 0 to 10, but jump 2 steps. Now, what is this going to do? It's going to say from 0, right? Instead of it taking 1, after 0 is 1, then if you specify that you want to jump by 2 steps, then to take 0, it will leave 1 alone, it will go to 2, right? It will leave 3 alone, it will go to 4. So to print 0, 2, 4, so on and so forth, right? So that's how you can specify the jump index if you want to do that, right? And now that we've seen how the basic how we can actually access strings and how we can also display strings, let's go ahead to take a look at some examples together. All right, so I'm currently in my notes now, right now. If you have not opened your Jupyter notebook, go ahead to launch that from your Anaconda and run your Jupyter notebook. So after launching your Jupyter notebook, make sure to navigate to the particular folder or part where you are actually storing your notes in, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead to create a new file, a new Python file, because today, sorry, a new Python file rather, Python 3 kernel, yes. So today we're going to be talking about strings, right? And we're also going to talk about print formatting using strings also. So I'm going to name this O3, right? I'll name this what strings, right? I'll click rename. All right. So now I'm going to zoom this for you guys so you can see this very well. All right. So now let's talk about strings, right? So we're talking about strings. All right. So now, what are basically strings like I explained earlier, right? So strings are used in Python to record the text information basically, right? So you can use strings for something like name, your best food, basically anything that has to do with text, right? And strings in Python are actually syntax, right? Actually sequence rather, right? And basically, what do I mean by this? It basically means that Python keeps track of every element in the string as a sequence, right? So, for example, as we looked at in our previous slide, that Python, if you give a string of hello, right, and basically it's going to be in a sequence of letter in a specific order, and Python can actually use index to grab a particular letter, let's say H-E-L-L, whatever you want to grab, right? So let's look at how we can create a string. So to create a string, how do we do this, right? Just use let's use a single quote first, right? And inside this single quote, I have the opening and the closing, right? And in between, I'm going to go ahead to say hello, right? So if I run this, you can see that our hello is going to get printed out. All right. Now, what we can do is you can also use double quotes, right? You can use double quotes and you can say also hello, right? So whichever one you do is going to work fine, right? And this is basically how you can create a single word in Python. All right, so let's look at how we can create a phrase. So this is just a single word. Now let's look at how we can create a phrase. So we can create a phrase by using single quote also. And I can say this is also a string, right? And I'm going to click run. So you can see that it's also going to get printed out here. And we can also use double quotes to also say this is a double quote string, right? And also it's going to get displayed, right? So one thing I want you guys to take note of is you can't use a single quote in between of single quotes, right? So what do I mean by this, right? So let's use a single quote for example, opening and closing tag, right? And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say I am using single quotes, right? Single quotes, right? But this would actually throw an error, right? So now let's run this together. Right, so now you can see that what happened here is when you actually go ahead to run inside single quotes and you also have like something like this, right? You know, this is a short form of saying I am, right? So if you try to run this, basically you are going to have an error. Why? Because you can't use a single quote. Python will basically say, okay, you started here and basically you've closed it. So I don't know what is actually happening here again. Right. So that's why it's gonna say, okay, you didn't terminate it, right? Because it's saying that okay, you start and you close. So what is this one looking for here again, right? So it's actually going to throw an error, right? So a good way you can avoid this is use double quotes, right? So for me, whenever I'm trying to print out a string, I'm always using double quotes throughout. So in that case, even if I want to go ahead to use single quotes, That way, it's not going to throw any error, right? So I'm always using double quotes throughout. So what we can do here is we can now go ahead to say that inside this quote, we can just write now using now I'm ready to use the single quotes inside a string, right? And if I run this, you can see that now it's going to run successful without having any error, all right? So next, let's look at how we can actually go ahead to print a string, right? So let's look at how we can print a string, right? So for example, I can have something like, so let me do this, right? So I can have something like this, hello world, right? And basically, if I run this, right, basically this is how we can actually run a normal string, right? But when we run this, you will notice that Jupyter Notebook is going to say, it's going to write this 15, right? So basically, it means that you are just running the cell and you are getting your output back, right? But if you want, for example, if you want to output multiple things right now, let's say, so let me go ahead to escape and create a new cell below, all right? So now let's say that we want to output two words now, right? So let me copy this and paste it here. So let's say I want to output hello world one, right? And I want to also output hello world two, right? Now I want to display these two. If I go ahead to run this cell, let's look at what is going to happen. Now you can see that when I run this cell, right, it's only this one that is getting executed. All right. And now, yes, the double quote, I mean, the double quote works fine. All right. So for now, you can see that we can't actually print out this first one that we have here, right? Basically, how can we solve this error, right? How can we do this, right? So the proper way of actually displaying your output in Python, right, is by using what? Is by using string. It's by using print, right? So if you want to use the print statement in Python basically tells you that, okay, I want to go ahead to print out this particular line of code or this particular statement, right? So just like how you actually go ahead to print out your normal PDF or your normal A4 paper and all of that, right? That's displaying the output. You have to actually go ahead to also print statements in Python. And let's look at how we can do that together. All right. So we can do that by using a simple print statement, right? So print, now this is the keyword print, right? And if you want to actually use print, you can use these two parentheses, right? So print, open your parentheses and close it. And in between, you are going to write whatever you want to print here. All right. Now, one thing you need to take note of is you need to print, if you want to print a string, you can use double quote or single quote, but we're going to be sticking with double quotes, right? So double quotes, and in between this string, I'm going to type whatever I want to print here. So I can say hello world one, right? If I run this, you can see that it's going to get printed out, right? But you can see that it's not returning a particular number, right? Because we're using a print statement. We're not just um outputting it like the others, all right? Now, what can we do? We can actually print multiple lines, right? And let's do that together. So I can say, let me just copy this, right? I can do that, do the same thing here again, print hello world one. And I can also say print hello world two, right? I can say, I can also print another statement. I can print another statement here, right? Double quotes. And I can say use. So now I can specify backslash n. Now, if you see backslash n in Python, right, it basically means a new line, right? So backslash n is an escape sequence that we use in Python to say a new line, right? So I can say use backslash n to print a new line, right? And here I can also say print right? I can print again backslash n backslash n, right? And here I can say print. So you're going to see what I mean right now, right? So you say print, let's say see what I mean, right? So you can see now. Now, what happens when we run this code, right? Don't forget I'm using Shift Enter to run my code. That's the shortcut I'm using. And if you want to do it manually, you can just come here and click run, right? So you can see the shortcut is run the cell in advance, and it is saying Shift and Enter, and that's what I'm using, all right? So if you use Shift Enter to run your line of code, it's going to run the code and go to the next cell, right? So watch this now. So if I do Shift Enter, you can see it ran this cell and it went to the next cell, right? But if you want to run this cell and you don't want to leave this cell, you're going to use Command, right? Command Enter. So it's going to run the cell and it's going to stick to that particular cell, all right? So now you can see that when I run this particular line of code, right? So the first one is what use it's printed out hello world, which is the first line. Next line hello world 2, and I now said use, right, backslash n, and after I said use, it went to the next line because I specified this what backslash n escape sequence, and now it now printed out space to print a new line, and that's what we have here, right? Space to print a new line. And after I said backslash n again, right, it went ahead to create a new line, and also it now printed out. You see what I mean, all right? So I hope you are all following me in the comment section, right? So now we can also do some interesting stuff, which is we can actually check the total number of lengths that we have in a particular string, all right? So if I want to do that, I can say my len, right? So this is actually a special function in Python, right? I can say len into brackets to check the total number of strings I have in a particular sentence, right? So I can say, for example, let's count how many words we have in hello world. So I want you guys to drop it in the comment section. How many characters do we have here? How many characters do we have in hello world, right? So I want you guys to drop the answer in the comment section before I run this particular cell, all right? So now, while I wait for you guys to drop the answer, let's go ahead to do another example, right? So yeah, we also have something like we can assign a particular string to a variable, right? So I can say, for example, s is equals to hello world, right? S is equals to hello world. All right, so now we are having 10. Somebody is saying 10. Now let's count this together. All right, so let's count the total number of strings that we have here. All right, so we can say 1, 1, H1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now you have to count this space also, right? Because this space is actually identified as a character also in Python, right? So 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So Amid, you have to actually count the space also, right? So if you count the space, it won't be 10, it's going to be 11, right? So let's go ahead to run this cell, Shift Enter, right? So Amid, you can see that we're getting 11 output, right? We're getting 11 because it's actually counting the space also in it, all right? So now let's go ahead to create a variable name like we did here. So s equals to hello world, right? And basically we are going to look at how we can print and also tend to grab some indexes out of this, some characters out of this particular string, all right? So if I say s is equals to hello world and I run this cell, Shift Enter, right? I can now check for the variable name s, right? And you can see that s here we have what? Hello world, right? So now let's print. We can also go ahead to print s. Now, because we have already created this variable s, right? We don't need to add string again while we are trying to access it, right? Because this s is already defined right now in Python. And the way do we define it? We defined it here, right? So if you want to print a variable name, that's one thing you should take note of. If you want to print a variable name, as far as you've already assigned that variable, you can go ahead to print it out without using a string again in it, all right? So we don't need to add strings, right? Because if I go ahead to say print into strings s, then it's going to print the letter s for me, right? And that's not what we want to do. what we want to do is we actually want to go ahead to print out this variable that we assigned here, which is s. So I don't need to add a quote again in it. All right. So I'm going to go ahead to run this cell, and you can see that we have hello world. All right. So now let's look at how we can actually index. Right. So now if I say s, don't forget, if you want to grab a particular character in your string, what you're going to do is you're going to use what? The square bracket, like I said earlier in our slide, right? So I have the square bracket, the opening one and the closing one, and I can go ahead to say 0, right? So don't forget, 0 is going to print out the what? The first character, which is what? H. So let me go ahead to run this, right? So you can see we have H here, all right? So let me create one new cell below. And let's look at how about if you want to grab the letter E, right? So the letter E is going to be what? S, then what? 1, right? So run this, right? Okay. So now you can see that it's printing the word what? E. So in Python, to print out the first element in a particular string, you use the index 0. All right. So how about if we want to grab L? We can say S, then we can say what? 2, right? Then we'll run this cell, and it's going to go ahead to print out what? L. All right. So now we can actually use the um the semicolon to actually perform slicing, right? Which grabs everything up to the designated point that we want to print out. Now, what do I mean by this? Like I explained in our previous slide, by using the semicolon, then the start, and what you want to do in Python. Let's look at it together. All right. So I can say, for example, s, right, and I will say into quotes, into square brackets. I can say grab 1, then put this dot, right? So basically, what it's going to do is it's going to go ahead to start from what? E, which is 1, then print out the remaining one, right? So once you specify this um semicolon here, it means grab the first index that is specified here, whatever index that is specified here. For this example, for specifying 1, so it's going to go ahead to grab E, right? And the others, which is LLO space WORLD, right? So let's run that. So you can see this, all right? So now, how about if you just want to grab from H to L, right? So HEL only. What we can do is we can say S into square bracket, and I will say grab from the beginning, everything from the beginning up to the third index, right? But now, don't forget, what is the third index here? Let's look at this together, right? So the third index is 0, 1, 2, 3. Is this second L? This is the third index, right? This second L here. But don't forget that I said that when you are using a stop index, it's going to grab everything, but not that particular stop index, right? So instead of us having HELL, we're going to have HEL. All right. So let's go ahead to run this together so you see what I'm saying. So you can see when I run this, we're having what? HEL. All right. So note that actually what we are doing in Python is we're saying it should grab from 0 to 3, right? From the beginning, which is 0 to 3, but it's not going to grab the third index. All right. So now, how about if we just want to grab everything? We can say s, right? And we can say print out all the strings that we have. All right. Shift enter, and we're going to have what? Hello world. All right. All right, so Rashid, if the screen is actually blurry, just go ahead to change the quality that you're using on your YouTube. So you can change this from 360 to 480 or 720. Then you're going to see my screen very well. All right. So it's saying what with 5, then with the index number 6 going to do. I mean, let's try that together. All right. So if I say 5, sorry, then into brackets, and we have the 6 index, right? So what are we going to get? So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is going to grab the what? W. All right. So I mean, okay, 5 you mean. So if you go ahead to say 5, then we're going to say S into square brackets, then we're going to say 5. Then it's going to print out what? The blank character, which is space. All right. So you can see that we have just space. right? So you can actually go ahead to try this out on your own and play around with it and get to understand how all of this works very well. All right, so let's continue. So, as I was saying earlier on, let's go ahead to look at more examples of string slicing that we can actually go ahead to do. All right. So I can actually decide to actually grab the last index, right? So the last index is going to be what? So instead of me counting 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and all of that, I can just grab -1, right? -1 also specify the last index, which is what? D, right? Hello world, D. So one thing you can also do is you can say you want to print out S, right? And say grab everything from the beginning, right? Up towards -1. All right, so what it's going to do is it's going to grab everything ex um excluding the D, right? So if I run this cell, you can see it's going to grab HELLOWORLD, right? The D is not going to come out, right? Because whatever last index you specify is not going to grab the last one. It's just going to grab up to that particular point. So that's one thing you should take note of, like I explained before. All right. So how about if we want to go ahead to specify the steps, right, that we want to take, right? So for example, I can specify that I want to grab everything, right, S, then into quotes, into square brackets. I can say I want to grab everything. So I'm saying everything. Don't forget we have one, two, three. The third one is the jump step that you want to go through, right? So I'm saying grab everything from the beginning to the end, right? So from the beginning, if you don't specify anything, it means I'm grabbing from the beginning to the end. So I can say the third one, and the third one I can say I want to grab I want to jump by 1. So this particular last one is saying the jump index that you want to jump with, right? So if I run this cell, we're going to have hello world, right? So now let's look at how we can actually jump. Let's run another example, right? And see how this jump index works in hand. So I can say grab S, right? Grab from the beginning, everything from the beginning till the end and jump by 2. All right. So if I run this, it's going to what? Grab H, right? Don't forget this first one is from start to stop, so from the beginning to the end, and I'm jumping by 2. So H, L, O, W, right? Don't forget this space is also there. It's going to skip it. W, then R, then D. All right. So let's run this and let's see what we have. All right. So you can see what I'm saying. All right. Rashid is better now. All right. That's good. So that's how we can actually use um jump um jump step, right? Now let's look at how we can actually print backward. For example, now if you want to print backward, we can say S into square bracket, and here I can say semicolon semicolon, which is from the beginning to the end, and we are taking this backward. So we're taking this backward. All right. So now you can see we have what? HELL backward, OWRLD. Right. So now let's look at strings properties, right? So for example, it's very important to actually know about string properties. Basically, they are also properties known as immutability, right? So this means that once a string is created, the element within it cannot be changed or replaced. All right. So for example, like how I explain what tuples are, that tuples are immutable. So once you create a particular string in Python, you cannot change it, right? So if I have, for example, S, my S is still what hello world, as we're using in our example, right? So if I try to say I want to assign S, then index 0, I want to assign it to the letter X, right? So basically, this is actually going to go ahead to throw an error, right? It's going to say string object does not support item assignments. So that's one thing that you should take note of. All right. So now let's do something now. We can actually concatenate strings together, right? So for example, if you want to join a particular string with another string, we can actually go ahead to join that together, right? And how can we do that? We can use the plus icon to basically concatenate, right? So you know when you are doing 1 plus 1, you're going to get 2, right? But now if you use the string, if you put into string 1 plus into string 1, they are going to get 11, right? Because in Python, what it means is you are concatenating it together, you are joining them together, right? Let's look at an example together, all right? So I can have, for example, if I want to concatenate another word with my hello world, right? I can say s is equals to s plus, then I'm going to put into quotes, and I will say space or let's say concatenate me, right? And if I run this and I now go ahead to print s, let me print s. So you can see that now we have hello world space, right? Concatenate me, all right? So you can see how that works, all right? So for example, if you actually want to say, okay, print, I can say, for example, my name is equals to, right? I can say my name is equals to Daveworld, right? And once I run this cell, I can say print, right, into brackets. I can just say print, I can just say hello space, and I'll put plus, and I'll put my name, right? If I run this cell, it's going to print out what? Hello Daveworld, right? Hello Daveworld. Now, let's look at some built-in strings in Python, right? So some built-in strings method in Python that we can actually go ahead to use, right? So what do I mean by this, right? So objects in Python usually have built-in strings, right? Whatever object you're using in Python, you can actually go ahead to use some built-in method, built-in strings method in it. And what do I mean by this, right? So how can we actually run methods, and what are actually methods in Python, right? So basically, just take a look at methods as a function inside Python that actually allows you to do some certain tasks, all right? And we are going to actually talk more in depth about inbuilt functions and methods in Python. But let's just take a look at methods in Python as some bunch of reusable codes in Python that is already written for us, so that we can actually do we can perform some certain tasks quickly and efficiently. All right. So let's take a look at some examples together. Right. So for example, if I have something like let me still use my s. So if I run s, my s is what? Hello world concatenate me. So if I want to use some built-in method, I can say s dot upper, right? If I use s dot upper, now what do I mean? What does this mean? It means that grab s, right? And after you grab s finish, use this method, right? So to use a method in Python, you use dot, and what? Use the name of the method with this opening and closing brackets, right? So this is how you call methods in Python. Now, if I run this, it's going to go ahead to what? Turn all the sentence that we have in hello world to uppercase. That's what this uppercase means, right? So we can also do s dot lower, and s dot lower is basically going to it's going to turn everything to lowercase, right? You can see including the h, all right? Everything. And next thing that we can also do is you can also use another method that is called split, s dot split. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to go ahead to split all your strings, all right, into, if you don't specify anything inside here, right, it's going to split your strings by the space, right? It's going to say, it's going to create a list, then it's going to return hello inside an item, then it's going to split it by space, return world space, concatenate space, then me, right? So let's run this and look at what I'm saying together, right? So I don't specify. So inside here, normally we're supposed to specify what you want to split by, all right? So let me go ahead to create more cell below. And if I go ahead to press shift tab, so just come inside this parenthesis and press shift tab, you would see that it has what definition is, right? So s dot split then the step is equals to none, right? So what does this step, sorry, SEP means? SEP means separator, right? So SEP means the separator used to split the string, all right? So for this one, we are not specifying any separator, but we're going to look at examples together if we want to specify a separator, right? So if I go ahead to run this cell, you are going to see that if I run this cell, we're going to have hello world concatenate me, right? Because it splitted this by the space that we have here. All right. Now, how about if you want to split by a particular word, like by a particular sentence, right? I can say s dot split, right? And I'm going to specify the separator, right? So I can say my SEP separator is equals to, so if I do shift tab, I can say SEP is equals to whatever I want to split it by, right? But by default, you don't need to specify the SCP. You can just write the letter that you want to split it by. So for example, let's go ahead to split by let's say W, right? So by W inside string, right? So we want to split by this W. Now what it's going to do is it's going to say look for anywhere you see W in it and split it by W, right? So remove the W and split the sentence by W. So we're going to have hello space, then this W is going to go, then we're going to have ORLD, then concatenate me, right? So if I run this cell, you can see that's what we're going to have, right? So it's going to return a list of items, right? A list of items. So that's how we can actually do some basic methods in Python. Now that we know how we can actually do all of this, let's go ahead to look at how we can actually do print formatting, right? Now, what is print formatting in Python, right? So let me just go ahead to clear this cell. Now that we understand how all of this works, now let's go ahead to look at print formatting, all right? Now, what are print formatting in Python, right? So basically, print formatting in Python are basically they allow you to, you can actually go ahead to see how you can print and format your strings, right? So let's say you want to print a particular string and your variable name, and how you can actually do all of that. That's what strings formatting for Python basically allows you to do, all right? So let's look at how we can work with string formatting for printing, all right? Now, basically, often you will want to inject a variable into your string, right? Into your string for printing. For example, I might want to say my name is equals to Daveworld, and I might want to say print hello plus my name, right? So what we're doing here is we are concatenating hello plus whatever variable name that we have here, my name, all right? So sometimes we might want to do this, right? And there are multiple ways to format strings for printing variables in them. And basically, in Python, this is known as string interpolation, right? So this way you go ahead to play around with your strings and variable, how you can print them together, and how you can actually do some certain tasks using this print formatting. And we're going to look at all of that, all right? So there are basically two methods for this. There are more, but there are basically two methods, and this is what we're going to explore mostly, right? So we have the dot format method, right? And we have the f strings method, right? And f string means formatted strings literal, right? So that's one thing if you take note of, right? F string means formatted string literals, right? So now that we know that we can actually concatenate our variable name, right? Our variable name plus the string method that we want to do, let's go ahead to take a look at some examples together, all right? So right here, I'm going to come back to my slide, right? Sorry, um my my notebook, my class notebook, all right? And I'm going to come here to create a new cell, to a new sorry, a new Python script. So I have this untitled, so let me just use this, all right? Yes, I can use this, all right? And this, I'm just going to name it I'm going to name it O4, right? And I'm going to name it string print, right? So I'm going to actually name this O3 also because it's still under strings, right? So I'm going to say print, I will say print formatting with string. formatting, so double T, all right? String formatting with strings, right? Strings, we're gonna run this, all right? And this is double S, right? Capital letter S, all right? So let's look at print formatting together, right? I told you that there are basically two methods that we're going to explore: dot format and format, right? So let me go ahead to write a note here. So I'm going to call these strings formatting. Right, so don't forget that everything we are doing in today's class is going to be updated on our GitHub repository, which is here. So immediately we're done with the class, right, just always make sure to come to this repository, right? Start this repository, start it, right? Come here and click on this star icon. So basically, once I make the changes, you are going to see that on your GitHub notification also, if you start this particular repository, right? And you can come ahead to see all the class notebook here, all right? So let's continue with string formatting, all right? So string formatting allows you to inject item, right? You can inject item into a string rather than trying to chain items together using commas or strings concatenation, right? So basically, let's quickly take a look at this on how we can actually use string formatting in Python, all right? So there are two ways I told you that we're going to talk about, which is dot format method and also the f string method. All right. So now, first, let's take a look at the dot format method. All right. So for example, if we want to print if we want to use, so let me just write this here using dot format method. Right. Mm, format method. All right. And let me just do this. Mm, all right, very good. So, for example, I can say print, right? So print into brackets, and I would say this is a string with an. So now to use the dot format method, right? You have to specify these curly braces, right? So now once you specify these curly braces, you're not going to use dot format, right? Dot format. And basically, once you use dot format, you're not going to specify what you want to insert inside that particular curly braces, right? So yeah, I'm going to just say insert this particular text. So I'll just say insert, right? So if I run this, what is going to happen is it's going to go ahead to say this is a string with an insert. Now, what happened here? Simple and straightforward, right? Basically, Python saw what you added here, these curly braces, and once it see this, it's going to go ahead to specify to add the inserts inside these curly braces and replace it with that, right? So that's why we have this is a string with an insert, right? And basically, you can basically specify um multiple text that you want to insert using the dot format method, all right? So for example, I can say print, right? Print into brackets, right? I'm going to say I'll say first object, right? I can say first object, and here I'm going to say a, right? That's what I'm doing, right? So I'm going to say also again second object, right? I'm going to say b, right? And also I would say third object, right? And I'm going to say what? C. Now, once we want to use this, you can now say dot format, right? And inside the dot format, I can now specify the variable name that I wrote in here, right? So I'm going to say my a is equals to 1. I will say my b is equals to, I can use string, right? So I can use different ones, even if it's string or even if it's integer or float, right? So I can say my b is equals to 2, and here I'm going to say my c is equals to what? 12.3, right? Then I'm going to close my bracket, right? So you can see, what am I doing here? I'm printing out first object is A, second object is B, dot object is C. And I'm using this dot format method, right, to pass in the values for A, B, and C, right? So A is 1, so to print out first object 1, second object 2, then third object 12.3. So let's run this together. So you can see here, first object 1, second object 2, and third object 2.3, right? And this is how you can actually go ahead to use the dot format method, all right? And there are multiple ways of doing this to printing out strings, but let's take a look at how we can actually use the formatted string literals also, right? So let's take a look at how we can use, so using formatted string literals, right? So it's also known as what? The f strings, all right? Okay, so gonna got this, skip, right? So now basically, in Python 3.6, right, they actually introduced f-string that offers benefits over the older dot format method. So that this dot format method is actually the old version, and basically sometimes this might be it might be stressful to use, all right? So basically that's why Python introduced f-string, and we're going to look at how we can use f-strings together right now, all right? So to use f-string, let me just create a variable here. So if I have a variable name, is equals to what? Let me say Daveworld, right? And I want to print out my name, right? So I can say print, right, into brackets, right, into string. And if I want to use f string, you have to specify at the front here, just you specify f, right? So once you specify this f here, Python is automatically going to know that you want to format your strings, right? So you want to pass in either a variable name and all of that. And how does this work? Now, if I say F here, right, and I start, I write a sentence like this. Okay, he said, let me just say, he said, his name is. Now, when I want to pass in my variable name now, I'm now going to use this curly braces, and I'm going to specify name, right? So the variable name that I created here. So he said his name is the name. So what's going to happen here is going to replace this name with the value here, div world. So if I run this cell, you can see it's printing out. It said his name is Daveworld. All right, and you can see how simple it is using f string instead of me using dot format a and all of that. All right, so let's look at some more example on how we can use f string. All right, so I can also specify, I can have more than one variable name, right? I can say, let me say my name. I can say, create another variable saying age, right? I can say age is equals to 30, right? I can say CGPA, right, is equals to 5.0, and I can run this cell, right? So if I want to check my variable name, if I say age, you can see we have 30. If I say CGPA, you can see we have 5.0, right? So I can print this out at once. I can say print, right, into parentheses, and I can say f string, right? I can say now, I can say name, right? So name got a total, or I can say name is, I cannot put age, right? Age, yes, and he scored a total, or he had a total of a total CGPA, or he had a CGPA, sorry, CGPA of, I can put CGPA here, in his 100 level first semester, Now, what am I doing here? Don't get confused, right? What I'm doing here is I'm saying that f the name, this name is going to be replaced by Daveworld. So it's going to be Daveworld is, then the age is going to be replaced by 30. So Daveworld is 30 years and he has a CGPA of, this CGPA is going to be replaced by what? 5.0. And that's why we have this F string here to help us to do that. All right. In its 100 level first semester. So if I run this cell, you will see that I'm having Daveworld is 30 years and he has a CGPA of 5.0 in his 100 level first semester. All right. So this is how you can actually go ahead to use dot format method. All right. And basically, there are other methods also that you can use in Python, which is using the concatenation method. So for example, if I want to use, let's just quick do the last example. So I can say using concatenation, right? So let's use concatenation method now. So if I want to do this, print out this same example as I did here before, let's use the concatenation method now, right? So I'm going to say print. Don't forget that the concatenation method means that I'm joining two or more strings together. So let's take a look at how we can do that. So I can say print into brackets, then I want to print out the name first, right? The name first. All right. So I'm going to say name space. Now I want to print out is, but is not defined. It's a string. So I'll say plus into brackets is, right? Now next I want to print out the age. I will say plus into brackets what? Age. Now the age is an integer, right? And the CGPA is a what? Floating point number, right? And basically you cannot concatenate a string and an integer together, right? And I'm going to show you what's going to happen if you try to run this, right? So let's continue. Plus, then I'm going to concatenate what again? Yes, and he has a CGPA of, right? They want to concatenate what? CGPA again. CGPA, right? Then plus the string again, plus the string again in his 100 level first semester. All right. So now, if I go ahead to run this, we're going to run into an error, and I will explain why. Now, the reason why is you cannot concatenate, like I said earlier on, you cannot concatenate a string and an integer together. So what you would have to do here is from here, you can turn this into a string by saying str, right? Str, then close your parentheses, right? So if I run this cell, we're going to have another error, which is because of this CGPA. So let me just show you to confirm. All right, so you can see here again, we have can, can only concatenate strings, not floats. All right, so because of this, and we also have to turn it to a string, str. Right, if I run this now, then we're going to have Daveworld is 30 years and he has a CGPA of 5.0 and blah, blah. So now let's format this very well. We have to use space. So Daveworld, there's space here, is space here. All right, so sorry about that. And I can use plus CGPA string and I'll use space here also, right? And yeah, I'll use space. So if I run this cell, we should be good to go. So Daveworld is 30 years and he has a CGPA of 5.0 and it's on the level first semester, right? First semester. All right. So now, whichever method you guys prefer, let me know in the comment section. Do you prefer the dot format method or do you prefer the concatenation method or do you prefer the f string method? Let me know in the comment section. All right. So basically, this is the basic format method that we have in Python, and we are going to be using f string mostly, and once in a while we'll try to use concatenation method also. But basically, we're going to be using f string methods only, and I'm also going to include the link of documentation so you can check it out if you want to read more about um, formatting in Python. All right, so I'm in the same F string, right? So we're going to be using F string throughout the whole lecture. Most time we're going to be using F string. We're not going to be using format method, right? Because from Python 3.6 earlier on, Python introduced this F string, and to be honest, they are the most easiest to work with and most fun to understand, also fun to work with also. All right, so Lady Black is also saying F string. Yeah, F string is actually the best. So I hope you guys got to understand what we did today. So today we were able to cover introduction to strings. Basically, we looked at how we can print strings, how we can also use the slicing method, how we can print out some certain index inside our string. And I hope you guys got to understand that. Furthermore, we also talked about how we can work with print formatting with strings, or how we can do the dot format method, the f string method, and also how we can work with concatenation method, right? So in our next lecture, we're going to also go ahead to look at more more data types. Don't forget we are still under um the introduction to object and data structure, um data types in Python. So now, in our upcoming class, we are going to look at lists and dictionaries so we can understand more basic data types in Python. And with that being said, I hope you guys got to understand what we did today. And if you do, please don't forget to smash that like button. Always smash that like button, always, right? Smash that like button, subscribe, turn on the notification bell icon, and I'll see you guys in the next class. Peace.